I was born in 1931 to my parents Tova and Hirsch in the village of Samashkane, which was in the Bessarabia region. This region had been a part of Romania until World War II. Hirsch was born in Samashkane and Tova was born in Olishkan, both of them in 1900. I have had and I still have two big brothers, Meir, Misha, and David, and a little sister called Lilia. The family was in a high and well-established economic condition. The Jews and the Gentiles in Samashkane lived together, involved with each other, and the relationship between them was generally good. There were 50 Jewish families in the village, and our family was one of the rich ones. We had 10 acres of soil in which we raised plants of tobacco, cows, horses, pigs, and vines. My mother was housewife and my father was primarily responsible for the whole farmstead. In addition, of course, my father had winery, a liquor store, a pub, and a shop for farming equipment. Our family maintained the Jewish traditions, and we used to go to the synagogue and celebrate the different holidays. In 1931, World War II started. At first, we didn't feel it in our area, but as Russia entered the war in 1941, the Romanian authority in Bessarabia escaped to Inner Romania, and the Russians came and took over the region. Until that time, I have only managed to study in the first grade. There was no local authority in the village for a few days till the Russians declared it formally and made a symbolic event of burning down the Romanian flag and replacing it with the Russian flag. The Romanians were afraid of the Russians because since the beginning of the war, the Romania ruled had cooperated with the Germans. The Russians started to establish a communistic authority in the lands they had occupied, and it was felt mainly in the local economy in Bessarabia, which was now all based on collective farms or kolkhozes. All of the agricultural lands had been nationalized and all of the peasants and the landowners had to work in these lands for their living. The payment for the production was terribly low. That's why our family's economic state dramatically dropped down, and everybody mature enough had to start working to support the family. During this time, the Germans started heading towards Bessarabia and were preparing themselves to eliminate all of the Jews in the region. The Russians saw it and began evacuating the local residents inside the USSR. In our village, they provided a carriage with horses and a driver to each family to help us escape, and some families escaped by foot. We were moved to the border between Bessarabia and Ukraine, next to the river Dniester, and then to the Ukrainian town of Ribnitsa, which was in the other side of the Dniester. During the process of transporting, the Germans kept moving forward inside Bessarabia and bombing forward into the Russian territory. Many were killed in those bombings. After 2 days in Ribnitsa, the Germans got too close, and that's why there had been another order to keep running, and we were moved from Ribnitsa to the city of Pervomaisk. There we have stayed for a while until we got another order to run, and we arrived to the city of Dnipropetrovsk. After a short period in Dnipropetrovsk, we were given the option to escape by train towards the Caspian Sea, and so we did. We were put on a cargo train which was meant for animals. The carts were closed, and all of our extended family was in one cart. This was the last closed cart in the train, and behind it was connected to a chain of open carts on which there were military weapons such as cannons and tanks. As the train stopped in one of the stations, my father went down to buy some food for Lilia, and when he came back, he saw that the train wasn't there anymore. Me and the rest of the family stayed on the train, and while my father was gone, it was moved to another track. My mother decided to take me, my brothers and my sister and move to an open cart so that maybe we would see father in one of the stations. And that's how we kept going. The rest of the extended family stayed in the closed carts. After a while, the Russians decided to disconnect the two chains of carts, and they sent the line of closed carts with another train backwards in the direction of the battle with the Germans. Till this day, I don't know what happened to them. We were still in the line of the open carts and kept going. In one of the stations, David and Meyer suddenly started shouting, "There is dead!" Fortunately, he happened to get to the same station and returned with us again. At last, we arrived together at the shore of the Caspian Sea, and there we were put in a refugee camp where we started waiting for a ship to come and get us to Uzbekistan. There were many people in this camp, so we had to wait for a very long time until we could get on a ship. During this time, there were many thefts in the camp, and the people were dying from diseases around us. And when finally managed to get on a ship, we were given an order to throw everything that occupies too much volume to the sea and remain with the smallest objects only, so that there will be enough space on the ship for everyone. We arrived with the ship at Uzbekistan, at a small town called Lezhna. There, the Germans were pretty far away from us, and we didn't have to worry about them. Then we started adjusting to our new home. Everybody started working, and my job was to take Lilia every morning to her kindergarten and then bring her back at noon. My mother started working in a factory, and my father was taken to do military works in Kazakhstan. That's how things were for about a year and a half, until my father was given permission to bring us to live with him in Kazakhstan, and we all moved there. After a little while, the army has taken Meyer to a special school that prepares people to work for the Red Army in preparing tanks and other vehicles. And after he finished there, he was taken to work in a military factory. David started working in a shoe factory, and I kept taking care of Lilia. We continued this routine until the end of war in 1945, and then we were given the permission to return to our old home. We all came back to our old home by train, and we did find our home in one piece. But all of the property we had left there had been stolen. The Gentile neighbors were afraid that we will blame them, so they brought us some furniture and some food, and we started our life all over again. Of course, the place was still under the communist law, so we lived pretty poorly. The first 2 years after the war were very difficult because there was a drought and it was very hard to grow any food. Every family had to grow their own food. Short time later, Meir also came home, but again for a short period, and then left for a job in Chernovtsi, Ukraine. He worked as a train driver for quite a while and then was taken again to the military service. He served there for another 30 years until he retired. During this time, he only got to visit the family 12 times and for a few days only. When I was 14, I decided to travel to a larger village to learn and become a tractor driver. I worked in the profession for a couple of months, and then my employers sent me to a truck driving course, after which I worked as a truck driver for about 3 years. At the age of 18, I was recruited to the Red Army and served there for 5 years. Then I kept working as a driver in all kinds of vehicles until I immigrated to Israel with my family in 1974. Here I started working as a mechanic in the Israeli military industries and then in the Navy until I retired. Right now I live in Kiryat Chaim with my wife Nina.